After the eviction moratorium, a lot of landlords were accepting partial rent payments because they wanted to get paid something from tenants who hadn't paid in a long time. I'm going to tell you exactly why that was a bad idea. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going to go over exactly why landlords should not accept partial rent payments, okay? Now, I've been saying this for a long time, okay? When you take a partial payment, it really can screw you up and not do anything good for you as a landlord. Now, I know that when the eviction moratorium and everything was going on, a lot of landlords were like, hey, I'll take anything I can get from this tenant. I want to work with this tenant, etc., right? But it can be biting you in the butt when the eviction moratorium ended, okay? But before I get into the article, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you think it's okay if a landlord takes a partial rent payment? And why do you think that? I know that a lot of landlords are, they're more easygoing than I am. Okay, so they're willing to work with tenants in ways that I'm not. But I've been, burned so many times that now I follow a pretty strict set of rules just so that I can, save myself the burden. Okay? All right, so this article comes from 386rent.com, and it says, what are partial rent payments and why you should never accept them? Let's get into it. Is accepting partial rental payments ever a good thing? Well, it is safe to say no. Nothing good ever comes out of accepting partial rental payments. It is like Pandora's box. Once opened, it releases the worst for you. Here is a detailed account of what happens when landlords start accepting partial rent payments. All right, so yeah, we get started off, and this author obviously agrees with me, right? And the reason I always find articles to try to explain what I say is because, I kind of talk in circles, and a lot of these authors, they can explain things a little bit clearer than I can. So let's get into it. What are partial rent payments? If you have been a landlord for long, you must have heard the infamous line, "I will pay you the rest later. Please accept half at the moment." This type of situation can never bid good for the landlord. It is always a sticky path that never lands the landlord on his feet. You want to be the good guy and help your tenant, but to allow one, you will have to allow all. As a landlord, you must set a precedent that all renters will follow, and accepting partial rent payments can't be a part of it, no matter how good of a person you are. Accepting partial rent payments is a big no. Here's why. And now they're going to go over exactly the reasons why, and I 100% agree with what they say in this article. Most apprentice landlords are always up to accommodating their tenants. They want to make their tenants comfortable, be in their good books, and offer all kinds of flexibility. And this also extends to accepting partial payments. But before being so kind and generous, remember that this is your business. Your unit is your bread and butter, and you cannot bend the rules because there are always legal and financial consequences. Here are some of the reasons why you should never accept partial payments from your tenants, right? And so, like I've said many times before, okay, I have been burned before, and now I believe in following a strict set of rules and applying them 100% to all of my tenants. So it might seem cruel, it might seem mean, but if you don't have all of 100% of what you owe me, which is the rent payment and any late fees that are applicable, right? Then I don't want it. I don't want to get a $10 from you now and then another $10 tomorrow or whatever, right? I want 100% of what is owed me, or I am going to go ahead and start the eviction process against you. Okay, that's the way this works. And it messes up the eviction process. The most common reason for not accepting partial payments, and almost all landlords know this, is that it terminates the eviction process. Basically, if you do accept it, you will have to restart the whole eviction process. You cannot file for eviction because you did not get the full payment. And with partial payments, it is very hard to get the full payment because the tenant will keep on taking advantage of your kindness and keep asking you for a couple more days. Yeah, and so during the eviction moratorium, what was happening was a lot of tenants were like, hey, they were going and talking to their landlords, and they were like, hey, I don't have the full rent that I owe you, but I have this partial amount, right? Will you take it? And a lot of the landlords wisely were saying, no, I will not accept this, okay? And this is exactly the reason why, because once you accept a partial payment, then the whole eviction process starts over again. And the chance of you getting the rest of that partial payment are zipped to none at that point. So what a lot of the landlords were doing, they didn't know when the eviction moratorium was going to end. They just were saying, no, we're not going to accept partial payments. And that way we'll be able to get the eviction rolling as soon as possible, as soon as the eviction moratorium is over and the courts are back open. So yeah, they were doing the smart thing. Now, had they known that it was going to last for 18 plus months, maybe they would have done something different, but that's not guaranteed either. So it's understandable, and don't think that all landlords are bad people because we're doing it this way. But after you've been burned, you change the way you look at things and then change your perspective. Okay, basically the bad tenants ruined it for the good ones. So after a bit, you're tired of excuses and frustrated about the long wait. Finally, you file for eviction and everything is going smoothly. But the minute the lockout date approaches, your tenant pays you a couple of dollars toward rent. And there goes the whole process. You'll have to start again, from scratch, the whole thing. You're basically back at square one, with just a couple of dollars from the renter's pocket. Such hassle is not worth the kindness you showed to your tenant. Hence, wise up and never accept partial payment. However, there are other reasons too. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example right there, Pay you a couple dollars, and guess what? The whole thing starts over again. All the letters, the court, everything will, so don't even deal with that, okay? Once you get the eviction process started, don't accept a single penny from these tenants. Discrimination. Once you accept from one tenant, you cannot say no to the other. And if you do, you're in deep trouble because this comes under the category of discrimination. As a landlord, this is one bad decision. You do not want your tenant to file for discrimination under the fair housing lawsuits and their attorney demanding your blood. Whether you win or lose, there will be a dent in your reputation, not to mention your bank account. So make sure you know what you are getting into by accepting partial payment from your tenants. As a landlord, you must treat all tenants equally, and if you let one bend the rules, be sure everyone will want to do the same. And they're absolutely right, okay? So, just for an example, I have 4 duplexes in the Kansas City area, right? I accept a late rent payment from just one of those tenants, then the very next month, all 7 of the other ones can come up. Well, you accepted it from that one person over there. So therefore, now you have to accept partial rent payments from all 8. You screwed yourself over by doing that, okay? And they will use and abuse you, until kingdom come. Because you basically allowed that to happen. So yeah, there's a lot of good reasons for not accepting it. But let's get into the last one here. Or I guess there's 2 more. It messes up your books. Do your books a favor and do not accept partial payments because you can never keep clean accounts if you keep accepting bits and pieces of the rental payment. Not to mention the fact that there is also the matter of late fees. Receiving $200 here and $200 there, adjusting the rest to next month is too much of a hassle. It also messes up the books. It is too much to keep track of, especially if you have multiple units to take care of. From late or partial payments, you will be soon tracking priority debts. This will become a living nightmare real soon. The only way to keep your books tidy is to accept payments on time and in full in one go. And that's very, very true, okay? The books are a nightmare, okay? When I do my taxes every year, I mean, it is ungodly the amount of paperwork that I have, okay? I'm building spreadsheets, I'm doing all sorts of stuff because I have, 2 separate property managers I pay, plus I self-manage some of my properties. I've got receipts all over the place. I've got, multiple mortgages and insurance. It takes a ton of work. I pay an accountant a good amount of money to do my taxes for me. because, I have to. I simply put have to. It is too complicated for me to do it myself, okay? Now imagine I'm throwing in partial rent payments and, trying to figure out late fees and all this other stuff on top of that, okay? And I don't have time for it. I'm a small landlord here. I don't have time for it. Late fees and unnecessary arguments. Another thing that will drive you up the wall is the fact that tenants love to receive accommodation, but they never dole it out to the landlord. You may do them the kindness of accepting late rent or half rent, but they will not comply by handing over the late fees. You can avoid this by clearly stating in your lease agreement that the late fee becomes outstanding when the rent remains unpaid in full by the end of the grace period. But here's the truth. In most cases, the judge sides with the tenants more than the landlords. So by accepting partial payments, you will find yourself in yet another sticky spot. Your tenants will always push your boundaries. For renters, this is a common practice. As a landlord, it's your domain, and hence up to you to set the limits and draw the line. Clearly state in your lease agreement that if the tenant fails to pay the rent at the given period, they will receive the eviction notice and stick to the rule. Always stay firm when it comes to boundaries when the tenants see that you mean business. They will pay up in time. Mishaps still happen. Okay? And yeah, that's it, okay? Don't accept partial rent payments. Stay strict to your rules, and you won't have a problem.